My guest today is filmmaker Nayla Al Khaja, who is the first female film director in the United Arab Emirates. Now, her latest feature, BAAB, is a psychological drama film co-written by Masad Amir Allah and features an original score by two-time Academy Award winner A.R. Rahman. Now, Nayla's films often balanced horror and beauty, characterized by rich, moody color palettes and intricate set designs. Now, her work explores themes like social stigmas and personal transformation through layered visual storytelling, establishing herself as a pioneering voice in Middle Eastern cinema. Now, she also directs TV commercials for brands such as Mercedes-Benz, Nike, Nestle, Neutrogena, and Nivea, and has worked with clients like Annie Leibovitz and Roger Federer. Now, she has also been appointed as the behind-the-scenes director for the film Star Trek III by the Dubai government as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Nayla Al Khaja and her feature film, BAAB, to the show. Welcome, Nayla.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction. I really appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. So I want to make sure that the audience realizes that the title of your film is pronounced Bob, but it's actually spelled BAAB. So where did the idea of the film come from?
The idea of the film, well, it was, I'm trying to process grief, and I lost my best friend of 26 years, and I didn't know what to make of it, how to package it together and get out of my system. And of course, you never get over someone that close to you. So the best way was to channel it through writing, and that's where Bob was born. And it actually means door. So it's that there's some certain doors in ourselves that we're sometimes too afraid to confront, and it's more like a confrontation. And it was a very, very difficult and scary film to write for me personally, because I had to be extremely honest with myself, and that wasn't so easy.
Oh, I could imagine. Now, I know that you explore, like you said, the themes of grief. There's also depression, anger, even the physical condition of tinnitus, but you wrapped these elements into a psychological thriller. But the one that stood out to me was tinnitus. Why?
Well, when I was pregnant with my twins, I developed a very severe tinnitus where there was a point. This was after delivery. I have to correct myself. So after delivery, I developed it, and it was very severe. At some point, I'm like, I can't live like this. Like, this cannot be my life. And the only way to shut it was either to go to sleep or watch TV and increase the volume really high, where it kind of overtook the sound of it. And I'm like, how can someone who just who just lost someone extremely dear to them, and then you have this physical pain on top, that's like double, the agony. And I thought it would be interesting to give my character that same feeling, because it came from, it's something very visceral. It was something that I knew how to write because I went through it myself, and that just added another layer of physical pain, immersed in her emotional pain. And I thought it would be a very interesting dimension to the film. And of course, it gives my audio, an incredible sound designer, Krishnan, a chance to really play with sound.
Well, I looked it up because I know for a lot of you, ladies and gentlemen, tinnitus is basically ringing of the ears, but it can cause phantom sounds, and in severe cases, it can cause concentration issues, anxiety, and so I those aspects were very evident in Wahida's behavior, the title character, correct?
Yes, as you rightfully said, and the sounds also change. I mean, it's interesting because you can hear like as if someone's ripping ripping something that's harsh, or metallic sounds, or even waves from the ocean that would wax and wane, like sounds that go on and off, and just annoying throbbing voices and sounds, and it could literally drive someone off the edge. So she's already in a very fragile position. She just lost her best friend, her soulmate, who's actually her twin sister. So the whole premise of the film is Wahida, the main character. As the film starts, we immediately tell the audience this is a woman who just lost her twin sister, and now she's also separated, and with her two kids, they go back to the mother's house, and she has to live with the mother's house. But there's one thing that's very odd, that there's her sister's room has this beautiful green color. All the other doors are brown, and this is where her sister lived and died. But there was something very kind of ritualistic in the village where they kind of lock the door of the deceased for a whole year. It's not a practice that's done anymore, but her mom just didn't want to open that door because it was just too traumatizing for anyone to go and visit the sister's room. And they've kept everything exactly how they left, how the sister left it. So her hair clips, everything exactly where it is. So Wahida, from the very beginning, from the very get-go, her challenge was to open that door and she wasn't allowed to. So the mother had the key to the green door. And that's where the premise of the film starts.
Yeah, I found the grandmother to be a very interesting character. I mean, the grandmother undermined Wahida's authority as a mother. She was very religious, but wondered if she was using that to hide behind her own secret.
I think she was using some of it as an excuse. I think she's definitely, there are 100% secrets. And I don't want to ruin it, but if anyone sees it, it's an open ending. But to me, it's something that happened to the sister that's very taboo in the culture to discuss. And she didn't want those secrets to leak. And therefore, she made sure that that door is always locked. But then, of course, Wahida tried everything under the sun to make sure that it's unlocked and kind of, being naughty and discovering the cassette tapes that her father left behind. And that kind of unraveled the,
Oh yeah, we're not going to spoil it. We're not going to spoil it for the
yeah,
audience. So
it's like nuts
yeah,
and dolls. You open one, there's another one, and then, until you reach the end. Correct.
yeah, it's a great psychological mystery within this film, and I did a little studying and learned that in Middle Eastern and Islamic culture, it was the green door that symbolizes paradise, spiritual growth, deep connection to nature, because green is considered a sacred color. And it's often used, as you showed in the film, on homes, mosque doors throughout Northern Africa and Arabian architecture, which represents prosperity, renewal, and divine protection. But green also represents jealousy, and with the haunting theme of the film, even possession.
100%. So I went for the other, the latter. So it's definitely jealousy and possession, definitely possession, and possession plays a very big role in this film. And yeah, and it's, I would say, even obsession mixed with possession, but yeah.
I would agree with the obsession, because Wahida was not she was not letting go, and she was bound and determined to get answers, wasn't she?
Yeah, she's one determined, fierce woman, and she's odd as well. I mean, there's some things about her character that I don't want to spoil it, but I'm sure you know which scene. She's a very odd character, and I feel like, it's been a year since her sister passed, and she just can't get over it. And I also, she has this obsessive um, habit where she keeps listening to her dead sister's voice on her phone, like let's say through WhatsApp voice notes, and she just keeps repeating them. And I think that's also a very haunting theme. And to me personally, I think the most um, irritating and I would say horrifying character in the whole film is this darn parrot, because he only knows one word, which is her sister's name, and he keeps repeating it at the worst times you can imagine. And I just think, as the story develops, it gets more haunting and more beautiful with the parrot, obviously. But I think he plays an incredible role, although he only says one thing, which is her sister's dead. And I have to tell you a secret, which would have been chaotic and also a death penalty for the film. It's because when we got the parrot, he was a baby parrot, so we had a parrot handler, and we were so scared that he'd be, loud the whole time, because parrots can be very loud. And after filming, I gave it to the writer Masoud, who co-wrote the film, and he took the parrot. And it was literally 5 days later, he called me and he goes, this was the biggest regret. I'm like, why? You love him? He's like, no, he just won't shut up. He's so loud. He's loud the whole time. And I'm like, but he was so quiet. He goes, yes, because he was a baby when you had him, and now he's talking nonstop. And I'm like, if we just shot a week later, it would have been an absolute nightmare, because we're in the mountains. This house was a set. We don't have anywhere, we didn't have soundproof rooms. It would have been a disaster. Yeah, but we got very lucky with this beautiful parrot.
Wow, that's really funny, and because I was looking at with with Wahida, like you said, she would listen to her sister's voice on her phone, and and to be a year later, she's still not able to handle her grief in a healthy manner, and and I think one reason why she had an extremely hard time trying to let go, she wanted to know the why, and that sets up the whole film, doesn't it?
100%, because the reasoning or the reasons that are always explained to her, like, she just died. You're like, what do you mean she just died? Like, you don't die. And, her heart stopped one day. That's what the grandmother says. Like, that's one of the lines. And of course, she doesn't buy that. So then she digs and investigates, and then she finds the truth, which we all see in the end, right? So,
Yeah, well, explain to me what the gold mask the grandmother was wearing. What is the significance of that mask?
oh, this is a traditional mask. I also think it's a dying culture because it's not Islamic. It is traditional, and like my grandma, she used to wear it. She's no longer with us. She passed away during COVID. So it's a very soft material. I remember my grandma when she was in Germany, and there was a nurse next to us, in the end, she wouldn't stop staring at her. It was like the man in the iron mask, and she would be like, "Can I touch that? Can I touch that thing?" And then as soon as she touched it, my grandma she barked like a dog. She's like, "Oh!" And the woman jumped. She got so scared. She had a great sense of humor, but then she was being playful. So when she touched, it was like such a soft material. It's just a way to kind of cover their faces. It's a conservative culture, so it's not really the burqa where you cover your whole face. It's like part of the face. You can see the face, but you don't really see the face. So it's a very interesting shape as well. I don't know where I have to do more research on how it came through the Arabian Gulf, but yes, because all the GCC the older generation wear it. But let's say my mother, when my mother's now in her 70s, she's not wearing it. I'm not going to be wearing it. So I believe that was the last generation, and I really wanted to capture that in film. I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, yeah, because it was really there was a bit of beauty about it.
Yes, there's a beauty about it. There's mystery about it, and it's very authentic. Oh, I'm losing it. And it's very authentic to the culture, especially those who live in the north and in the mountainside. They are very proud of it. Let me say so.
Well, there I noticed I
And it's
noticed
not
the
real gold, so it's not heavy on the face. Sorry.
uh, that's all right. Hold on one second here. I want to get some water here. Well, I noticed in one of the scenes the three horns in the man's back. What did they represent? And I understand that you have a phobia about being around eels.
Yes, and these were real eels. So
I
it
saw
wasn't
the
like,
I saw them.
yeah, they weren't like, AI or CGI or any traditional kind of VFX. We actually had, again, an eel handler, and the relays there were fine. We had a bathtub with them; they were just fine. But I was really squeamish, and I don't like anything that resembles any type of squirrely, snaky feeling. Like snakes. I grew up in the desert when in an area called Mirdif, and I remember my mom had the second or the first house, and I woke up one day and go to the bathroom. There was a snake in my bathtub, and I screamed. So she came running. She's like, "What's wrong?" And she just gets a stick and she carries the thing and just goes out and chucks it. I'm like, zero. Like, she didn't even blink. Like, for her, it's just another day. But I'm like, I remember, like, at night I rolled up like spring roll because I was so scared it will find me somehow in bed. And ever since I can't do snakes and I can't do eels. But the story of the man, thank you for bringing that question. He's on his back, he's bare, and he has the thorns dug deep in his back, and it's from an Arabian mythology. So the idea is that pain is constant and people are selfish. So what happens is that he screams and he tells her to please remove the thorn. So when she gets rid of the first one, and then she gets rid of the second one, and he's about to be relieved from the third thorn to just be out of his pain. She discovers that she finds an escape route in the room where she just leaves him hanging because she was able to escape, but she didn't relieve him from his pain. So it just shows that he's been in this situation 100 times, and he's been in this. It's in our culture, he's called the pain man, and he's been in this room for 100,000 years, and a lot of people came before her. But every time they remove the thorn, when they come to the last thorn, they all notice this, the gap that happens on the wall, because every time she removes the thorn, the door opens up, you see, and the second one, the door opens up even more. So the third one, they know they can escape, so they don't even bother removing the third one, and they leave him in his misery. So it just shows how people sometimes can be very kind of closed to other people's pain, and they have no empathy in certain situations. So it's interesting that in Wahida's mind, because she was also very scared, she didn't want to help this guy and she just left. So I like her character because she's, you kind of feel sorry for her and sometimes you don't. You just want to punch her. She's so annoying. So
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Now, I don't want to spoil anything with this film. And so I want to be careful with this question. You can answer it or you don't have to because I don't want to really give anything away here. But in the second half of the film, we learn that Lolwa, the first wife of the father, she was jealous of Fatma because she couldn't have children, correct?
yes, so I like the idea of putting also polygamy, because polygamy is very normal in my culture. My grandfather had two wives. I was brought up with by two grandmothers in the same house. He was married to, I had three grandmothers. So my mother's mom, yeah, we have polygamy anyway. So and they lived together for 40 odd years, and then and it worked. It really worked. They had an incredible relationship, and I grew up in that culture. So I wanted to introduce this, but in a very kind of unorthodox way, where the first wife, we don't even know if she's human or not, but the first wife could also be like he had a wife before Fatma, and she couldn't have children, and he kept her as a secret, and then he married Fatma just to have kids. So that's a secret that was revealed later. I mean, it's not a big secret, but it definitely adds another layer to why the grandmother acts also strange about the cassettes and the door and
Yeah,
whatnot.
that's what I came to understand as to why the grandmother was acting the way she did because she knew what Wahida didn't know, and which she learns later on in the film. So I love the way that you slowly created this backstory of the grandmother where we finally learn why she acts the way she does because she's hiding a secret that I guess in a way she didn't really have to hide.
Yes, she probably didn't have to hide at all, unless um unless the first wife was not even a wife, maybe a mistress, so then it's even worse. But we don't know that because that's her secret. But we know that the main, let's say, focus of the whole story is what happened to the sister and how Wahida works around her, let's say, distress, right? So yeah.
Well, how did you cast your film, especially with actress Shaima El Fadul, who played dual roles? So, how challenging was that for you as a director?
That was incredibly challenging because I couldn't find anyone in the UAE who fit Wahida's role. I wanted someone who had a natural tick to them. I wanted someone who, like, they were kind of broken, but also had like beautiful nuance and acting skills. And I thought, Shema knocked it out of the park. She was amazing. And I found her by watching a lot of afternoon bubblegum TV series because I was like looking for someone not very popular. We didn't have a big budget, so I didn't have, celebrity star power kind of money. And then I saw her in a series, and I thought, that kind of looks like the person I want. And I shortlisted. I liked two actually, but then she ate it. Like she was the one. I knew that was the one. And she's never been in a cinema film. Like she's never been in a main role in any movie. It's her first film, so that was quite impressive what she was able to pull.
Well, I understand that Shaima worked very hard to perfect the Emirati dialect.
That was absolutely mind blowing because it's like getting someone who's hardcore. So for your audience to understand this, so it's getting like someone who is hardcore, let's say from Scotland with a Scottish accent, to do like an accent from Alabama or the South. It's like, ah, I mean, they all speak English, but it's just so different. And There's a letter where she just can't pronounce it, like the Bedouins from the North would, and we had to really work on that letter. And then we discovered there's another word we could have replaced it so easily that she could have come, but that really killed her. She hated me for that, but we worked through it. But we did a lot of coaching, a lot of accent practicing sessions and whatnot, and in the end, it's there. I would say it's 98% there.
Wow. I always loved, I guess, the study, and I've heard other actors talk about dialects, and and like in the UK, and you really said it perfectly because in the UK, if you go from South London and you start moving north, the dialect starts getting stronger. And then when you get into Scotland, you really hear the big difference. How big a difference are the dialects in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, all the Gulf countries, it is they have different words, they have different rhythm when they're speaking and sound like, a word would be stretched differently in the end, or maybe would go with a high and with a no. So it is very different. And if you have never practiced, let's say an Omani or Saudi accent, and now suddenly you have to do an accent from Dubai, from the UAE, then it is quite challenging. The language itself, the basics are there, but you really need to practice. It's very, and that's the other double challenge for her, because she had to get into the zone, get in her character, and still make sure that she doesn't f up. Sorry, excuse my language. Doesn't mess up the the tone or the accent. So,
It was so
oh, by
funny.
the way, her
Yeah,
sister,
I
this
was
is sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was in Ireland, and we had somebody in our group, and it was really funny because she lives there, and she would be talking to someone, and she would say, well, they're from this region of Ireland, and I'm like, how can you tell? Everybody sounds the same. But she was really correct, because even within one small country there could be 7, 10 different styles of dialect, and only those who live there on a regular basis can actually tell the difference. Of course, it's like here in the States, we know the difference between somebody who is in the Bronx in New York, and like you said, from or in the South in Alabama, or someone up in Minnesota. We know where they're from just by hearing them talk. So I love the fact that here you have an actress who studied really, really hard to get the dialect correct for your film. I just find that completely fascinating.
No, I mean, hats off to her, with all due respect. There's a scene where she's running and her feet went right through the steel bar of our track. And usually we put like golf balls for whatever reason. Of course, we had an ambulance, we had a nurse, and then between her toe, there was a gush, there was a big cut. We could see the bone, and there was so much blood. We had to quickly take her to the ambulance, and they sorted her out. They gave her 7 stitches. She came back, and she had her leg completely wrapped. Developed a fever that night, and she was so determined. So she came after the hospital by 1 hour and continued acting. I said, no, we need to take 3, 4 days off. You have to heal. Nope, she didn't. She ran her fever that night, came next day on set and continued. And she's like, she felt that the pain she felt was really helping her as well. I'm like, oh my lord, she's nuts, with me up, of course. But these things do happen. So we had very good coverage, and she's fine. I mean, thank God. Even now, I ask about her, the scar. There's like a tiny, you can barely see it. So it could have gone much worse, but I'm glad it didn't. Now, the other fun trivia part is that her twin sister that we do see through the flashbacks in the film, she's actually from Thailand. We had an Asian girl. She was gorgeous. She's like a model. She was so stunning.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't even notice.
Because we had to find someone with the same body type, hair, and agility, because she had to do a lot of running and a lot of, I mean, I don't want to give it away, but there's also a scene where she's like literally, levitating, or, that was a creepy scene. But, she had to be who's very good with gymnastics and stuff like that. So we found like a stunt person from Thailand who looked very much like Wahida from the back. So that worked beautifully. So we flew her in from Bangkok. So that was fun.
Wow. So, okay, you mentioned that you told Shima to take like 3 or 4 days off. So how long did it take you to film?
The entire film was 18 days and a half, which was extremely, extremely intense, and the pressure was high. I mean, I had a superb cinematographer. A lot of DOPs in the world know him. His name is Roger Stoffers. He shot a lot of films that you might have seen: School of Rock, Disturbia, a lot of big American movies. I mean, he started with Denzel Washington, 3 decades ago. So he's a veteran DOP, and he was very firm. And he's like, Naila, you only have two maximum takes. You're not allowed to see the footage you've shot. No, no, we're not doing playbacks. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I'm like, this is like the most craziest situation, and I prepared so much, and it was a bit because I'm very spontaneous, so it was stifling, because then you can't be creative, and sometimes you see something and you change your whole idea, and you're like, no, what, I want to shoot it this way because I don't know, there's a gut feeling, it says it's better. So at times he was flexible, but at times he would have to hold my hand and say, do you want to film in the can, or you don't want to film in the can? I'm like, I do. He's like, then you don't have a choice, you shoot this and we're moving on. I we had
So it
like this.
would. All right. So did you film this with real film?
No, no, we shot on digital, but because we were supposed to have at least, if in a normal situation, this would comfortably fill 27 to 28 days, maybe 25 days. But 18 and a half is gruesome. That was quite tough. And I had to be very quick and not, waste a lot of time. So I think the maximum time I had was 5 shots for that one single long shot where there's a sleeping scene, and that was probably the toughest scene in the entire film to shoot, because it was a dialogue heavy scene and we had one long take. So that was the one where he was a bit forgiving, but we needed that, and it was my favorite scene in the film. So.
Well, even the. I mean, the wedding scene looked elaborate.
Yeah, and ironically that took 2 hours to
Only 2 hours for that scene, because I was looking at the scene going, "Wow, that must have took a while to set up."
The setup did take time. They were set up before we when we were there. Everything was ready, so the organization was spectacular. But we had a Steadicam operator. So to be fair, there were two scenes where my DOP had a second. We had a second cam because we knew that we had to, otherwise we won't have enough coverage. So we had a camera that kind of followed all the dancers and the fireworks and all that. Not fireworks, the actual fire, and the goat head and all the bizarre stuff that was happening. So I would say this film is surreal, film noir, if people love kind of something that's macabre and different and very Arabic and Bedouin and haunting.
Well, what was it like working with two-time Oscar-winning composer A.R. Rahman?
Rahman, what a wonderful human being. He's a genius, but he's done films like 100, I think it was 127 hours. That's the name of the film. Like, the guy who gets his hand stuck in a rock for the entire movie. And I know of course, his famous film was Slumdog Millionaire. And it was his first dark genre film ever. So he's done over 200. To put context again, for people who don't know, A. Rahman, two-time Oscar winner, six-time Grammy, he's done over 200 feature films. And this is a tiny film for him. Of course, his budget's always big. And I'm sitting there, and you would sit there and be like, "Oh, I just have Hans Zimmer on the line. Oh, okay, fine, enjoy your Hans Zimmer moment." He's making a film with as well. So I was a little bit nervous because I was a little Star Trek, because we grew up with his music, so he's like a big rock star. He's also a singer, so he can fill concerts of 70,000 seats easy. And when I'm there working with him, I found my guts to be myself with him and not kind of like pander around what he wanted to do. So I'm like, no, I don't like this. I like this. He had 17 cues. I reduced him to 6, and he's like, you just killed all my music. I'm like, no, because this is supposed to be a film driven by sound design, minimalist, but when your music comes in, it will be incredible. And I'm so glad I did. And when he saw it in the cinema with me later, he was very, very happy. And I think the sounds that he created were so amazing. He took us, me and my producers, we went to this crazy farm like an hour away from his house, and he has this huge backlot, huge, and a musical room. It's like a dream. We sat there till like 5 in the morning, and he just sat there with all these bizarre Chinese instruments, and he was doing like bongs and crazy sounds and sharp sounds, and I'm like, what is he doing? I didn't understand it. And he went on and on. And I'm just sitting there waiting, waiting. And he's like, oh, Naila, can you grunt like the devil or make crazy sounds with your mouth? Because he heard me once doing stupid stuff. So I went there and I closed my eyes and I just made some very dark sounds like with my mouth. And then he kind of incorporated. that. And then later on, when I heard the composition, I'm like, oh wow, that's actually from the farm. And it's just incredible how it all came together. And he had the Sunshine Orchestra who actually played for the film. And oh, also we have some amazing news. The UAE official orchestra loved the score of Bob, and they're going to be playing it in 2 weeks live. So that's a proud moment for me.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Wow. Well, now I also understand that the crew was 40% women, which I congratulate you on doing. Why was that important to you?
In every film, I try my very best to get women and a big number of women because there are a lot of women who, because sheer ratio, like if you have like for every 10 guy in the position you have one female. And obviously I didn't want to do it because oh she's a woman. No, I would also, of course, I had to look at the work because that's going to impact the film. So I knew that the selection we had, they were very very strong. I had women flown in from Romania, a very big number of Romanian females who worked on the film. A lot of Emirati, my own national females, also worked on the film on various departments. So that was a very proud moment that I was able to get such a big amount of female power on set. So that was pretty cool. And I want to say that there's a beautiful haunting song in the film. It's the wedding song. There's the long version of it. That's also going to be A.R. Rahman's releasing that with a big pop music label very soon. So hopefully that will get traction for my film too. So that's
Wow. Wow. This is, it may have been, it only took you 18 and a half days to film it, but this was a really big production.
yeah, it looks good because I did have like two giants. You have a music giant and you have Rocher, who's a world on its own. So sometimes I had to pretend to be confident, and maybe this is a little tip for like filmmakers. If you're working with like a big star, whether it's behind the scenes or front of the scene, I worked with Jefferson Hall. It was my first film, and he was in Halloween. What was the other one? Game of Thrones, the prequel. House of Dragons. I keep forgetting. And I was nervous because it was my first feature film, and there's someone who has a fan base. He's not huge. He's not very popular, but he's Lord Lannister. So a trip is like you have to fake it. You really need to pretend you are super confident and not show any kind of, because otherwise you could be eaten alive. So I had to play that game, and then after a while you just fall into rhythm, and it's not scary anymore. It's comfortable, and you find your voice. And as soon as the days pass by, your voice gets even more confident, and then they just look at you as an equal artistic partner on the end of on the project that you're on. So that's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah, I could imagine. I've talked to so many filmmakers who directed their first film, and the experiences are so amazing. And then once you get through it, you're kind of ready to do it again. And even though it may start off scary, but then, like you said, you gain confidence and you learn so much the first time around, and you're ready for your next film. Now, I understand that you were an official selection at the 2025 Cairo International Film Festival. What was that experience like for you?
That was surreal because it was their 46th edition. It's the only A plus um, festival in the Arab world. So it's like the accreditation is worldwide, like Cannes and Venice. So the Arab world, that's the only A plus festival. So it's a big deal for me. We had our premiere there, and for Arab celebrities, we had two really big celebrities attending the screening. So when I looked to my right, I'm like, oh my God, it's like if you look around and you're like, oh, that's Julia Roberts. What is she doing here? You know what I mean? It's like, it wasn't Julia Roberts. Don't get me wrong. It's like the Arab version, right? Stars from because Egypt has a big industry. So we had two big stars, and then a very famous film critic, like the legendary Tariq Shanawi. He was there, and he said some beautiful things. Like he doesn't like he's very well known not to have a filter. So if he doesn't like your film, you'll know it. Trust me, he'll rip it apart. So I was really worried that he was in the screening, but I got some. He did say some stuff, but there was one thing that he said that made me very happy. He said, you did a very gutsy film, whether people like it or not. It's a very bold film, and not just for the UAE, but for all Arab cinema. And now I've heard also that my film just got announced at the Malmo Film Festival in Sweden, and it's competing only among 11 other international Arab feature films. Some of them have been in Venice, Berlin, nominated for the Oscars. So for BAAB, and also a dark horror film, that's good news for people who like genre films to be competing with just regular drama or political films. So that's great news. And I did both films, my first feature film, second, back to back. So I released both within one year and a half. And a lot of people, filmmakers say, well, it's taken us 5 years to make the second feature, or 7 years. How did you do that? And the secret is very simple. When I wrote Bob, I wasn't ready to direct it because it was very sensitive. So I had another film that I also wrote. So I had two films ready. So when I went and raised money, I actually raised money for both films together. Because the same effort, you just raise more money. I mean, you meet the same investor and you're like, put your money on both films. You never know. And that's what I did. And I was able to lock budgets for both films. When I finished the first one, I knew I already had the second one in the pipeline fully funded. So that was an incredible feeling. And now I'm on my third. So I'm on a roll.
Wow, that was a very, very smart move on your part. And I have to ask because how did you become the first female director in the EAE in the UAE?
The answer might so it's through a cow. Sorry, it's just so funny. And I'll explain what I mean. There was this My neighbor had a cow that was very noisy, and I just got my first 8 millimeter camera. I mean, I'm 48 years old, so I've been through the whole film 35, 8 mm, 30, super 35, 16 mm, and then moved to digital. But I shot my first feature film when I was 14 and a half, going to 15. By I really wanted to I really didn't like this cow. She was driving me off the wall. So I asked my neighbor if I can just borrow her, and I wanted to make a film about, like a music video about this girl who this cow was driving her crazy. So she decided to make a painting out of her, and so I shot this girl painting the cow in every color under the sun, and then she somehow gets stranded in the desert, and she's tied in a rope, and there's a belly dancer behind her. It was such a weird, surreal film, but I guess that was the beginning. And it was very inspired by a lot of different artists like Francis Bacon and Goya. So a lot of my work it has that kind of palette to it. So that was my first film, and when it was out, I submitted it to my school, and I think they said it's a few festivals, and after that, I made a few more other films, and then there was His Highness Sheikh Nayam Mubarak Al Nahyan. At that time, he was the Minister of Education. He wrote an incredible speech, and he flew in a private helicopter for the opening of my first documentary, and he said, "Today, I present the first woman film director in my country." And I was like, "Oh wow!" I mean that, and I have that speech. It's hanging in my office in Dubai, where he gracefully gave me the actual speech with his signature. So that's how I got into I guess, broke into being the first. It doesn't mean much when people ask me like, what does it mean to you? It's great for marketing. It's been so helpful for sure, but it means nothing if you don't have a good story. It means absolutely nothing. It holds no weight. I think for me now, I'm over that label. It's more about, how can I use my voice to bring unique stories that really reflect my region, or stories that I just, I'm very that fit my voice very well. So I'm looking for those type of stories, and I'm so glad I stumbled into the third one. So yeah,
So
which I
when do
didn't write, by the way.
you so when do you start working on the third one?
I actually I have a meeting in 3 hours with the writers. It's a husband and wife. They have a film on Netflix called His House, which scored 100% on Rotten Tomato. I love their work, and I read the script. True story. I read the script 2 years ago, and my husband said, "I've never seen you read something so fast. Like you were like, "Tick, tick, tick, tick," and you finished it." And I'm like, I looked at him. I'm like, I'm gonna make this film. And then I contacted their manager, and they gave me really bad news. They're like, sorry, someone's optioned it already and it's being developed. And I'm like, darn it. And I'm like, can I at least be pitched for, to direct it? Like, no, they already have a director attached. And it never left my psyche, and then like my mind. And then a year later, they're like, no, it's still with another, same team. 2 years later, I still ask the manager, because I know them, and she's like, well, incredible timing, because next week he loses the option, and if you put an offer, we can you can option the script. And I did that. I basically put an offer, I optioned the script, and I paid them, and now I have it for the next 12 months. So now the challenge is to raise the amount for in the next 12 months. So, yeah.
Wow, you were knee deep in film and the film industry, and it's so great to see. And ladies
But
and gentlemen, oh
language
no, go ahead,
first
Naila.
sorry, it's my first English language film, and it will be in the UK, based in the UK. It's a British film. It takes place in Wales, and with a lot of snow and a big castle. Say no more.
All right. Well, I know it's going to be great. And when you get it done, I want to see it and we can talk about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate
You're
your time. I do.
you're very you're very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, Naila Al Khaja's Bob is a haunting psychological dark fantasy that unfolds through the fractured mind of a woman reeling from the sudden death of her twin sister. Now, plagued by the eerie hum of tinnitus, the ringing in her left ear, she is drawn into a surreal world where grief takes on a physical form. Now, as she descends through three visual stages, depression, anger, and bargaining, her reality begins to distort, blurring the line between the living and the dead. Now, set in an isolated Emirati landscape steeped in myth and memory, Bob explores the intimate violence of grief and the unspoken bond between twins. Now, what begins as a psychological unraveling soon reveals something more outward, or I should say, otherworldly, a doorway, which is Bob in Arabic, which may lead to closure or something far more unsettling. Now, the storyline is captivating and the cinematography is beautiful and surreal, enhancing the overall story. And every actor brings their utmost best to the silver screen, and this is one of the better films to come out of the United Arab Emirates in quite a while. And Naila, I want to thank you so much for sharing this film with me today and much future success to you.
Thank you so very much for your time, and I'm looking forward for another session in the future with another film.
I am too. I am too. So, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you get a chance to see Bob, which is actually spelled BAAB, sit back, enjoy this psychological dark drama. I know I did. And for you up and coming filmmakers, you can definitely watch this film and learn some things. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can watch or listen to all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime Show, our YouTube channel. We're even on Spotify, iTunes, and more. And remember, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.
ليش ما بندخلها؟ مرت أكثر عن سنة من ماتت.
للحين يا دوم مصدقنها ماتت. حتى أمي.
آسفة أمي، أذكرت فيها، بس ليش حجرتها مقفولة؟ بس خلاص. آخر مرة سنين طافن وأنا أترياه. وينه؟ الرماد بلا تولى على نسمة وايد، يعني تمت بدالها. وين نسمة وياك؟ أبعد ضروري.
لو تسمعيني الحين أبغيك تعرفين أني أنا حبيتك.